Welcome back to Unraveling the Brain. I'm your host, Dr. Josh Madsen. In this episode, this is actually for you new doctors out there that are going to be starting a practice of some kind, whether it's a chiropractic business, whether it's a OT, PT clinic, those types of healthcare related businesses. And I want to walk you guys through some of the important steps that you need to take to even just start opening a business. You have a diploma, but now what? So that's what this episode is all about. Let's jump to the show. When I first came out of school, I was very blessed that I had, a dad that had started many businesses and I had learned some of those basic things. But most people in my class had no clue what it meant to start a business, what it meant to come out and actually get this whole process started. And I want to talk to you guys about kind of the important aspects that, that number one, that just don't get looked at, and the things that you may or may not know. So that way you can avoid some mistakes. Number one is when you're coming out of school, you need to plan ahead of time because number one, you're going to have a 3 to 4 month build out likely if you find a place. Number two, a lot of people are going to be taking an SBA loan or a small business association loan. And you have to have 25% down for that. So if you're taking $100,000 or $200,000 loan, you got to be able to you have to have the capital to be able to put that down. And it can't be a loan. So you can't get a loan from someone else in your family. It has to be a gift if you don't have that money or have access to that money. So you have to figure that out. So that's where, and if you can't get an SBA loan, then you have to take on investors to get that money. And that process can take time. Number two, your build out takes time. Number three, you also need to start marketing well ahead of time, especially if you're going to have a social media presence. It's not like I just put out a video and now I got all these patients. I had to put out lots of videos over whatever topic that I wanted to. So like for us, I wanted to see kids. So I put out every single day, I put out a video related to kids and how what we do can help them. And when you do those videos, don't just start out with like I did at the beginning of this video, like, hey guys, you'll lose them every time. Start out with whatever the biggest keywords that are, going on. Hey, is your kid struggling with balance? Is your child having issues XYZ here and here? Well, here's how motor development, or here's how whatever you do can help them. Or, if you want to see athletes, are you having a chronic knee issue? Blah, blah, blah. But start with whatever the pain point is and work your way into the videos. And then just start making a lot of videos and showing as many examples as you can in those videos and truly trying to educate. But again, that process takes months. For me to get any type of following at all, it took 6 months of me posting. So especially if you're even in school watching this, even better, start posting now. Start making content now that can be posted ahead of time. Be my biggest thing. And then you need to learn. The next step would be learning. Well, the first step would be learning where you want to open. Most importantly is looking at the demographic that you want to serve. So like for me, a good example is I wanted to serve kids, and I knew that up front. And so I need to look for the areas of towns that have the demographic that I'm looking for. So I needed to find demographic that was in their 30s. I needed to find ones that had a decent income. So you can look all of that stuff up online. So you can find, and also you want to be in a town that's growing consistently. Year over year, it's been growing. The last 10 years, it's been growing. The population from 10 years ago to now is improved dramatically. Because the last thing you want to do is you want to go to a town that is slowly shrinking, and that means your demographic is slowly shrinking. You want to go to areas where, it's like for kids, I want to go where they're 30-year-old sums, they have 2 to 3 kids, and that's the demographic that I was trying to hit. So if you're looking for athletes, you got to go to an area that has a high predisposition, a high amount of athletes. If you want to see elderly people, you need to go to an area that has a lot of elderly people. So look at that first and foremost. Then you can start working on all the other stuff, your build out, those types of things. The next thing I would look for is not only that the right demographic is there, but looking at your competition in the area. If you want to see elderly people and there's 10 other doctors seeing elderly people in the same way that you want to, it's going to be a lot harder. Versus, like, for example, there's very few people in Iowa in itself that does what I do. Actually, there's almost no one. and there's very few in the country. So my demographic is huge, or like my area that I can go to is very large because I'm very, very specialized and very niched into a certain area. The more niched you are, the higher amount of other people other doctors around you. It doesn't really matter at that point. But the less and more generalized you are, the more and more competition you have. You can't, like for example, with my office, you can't go down the street and get the same services. You can't even be in Des Moines and get the same services. You can't barely even be in Iowa and get the same services, if you can even at all. And there's not that many places around the country where you can get the same services all put together, all wrapped in the same bundle. So that means for me, I pretty much have no competition in my area in this specific niched market. And that's what you want. You want to be able to niche down as well as you possibly can, or to the smallest area that you can. Like for us, we work on motor development for kids that have developmental delays, traumatic brain injuries, and we work to help rehabilitate their movement and their motor skills. And we have all these different services to help us do that. So we're really niched. But the less niche you are, that means the more competition you have, the less you can charge, and the less profitable businesses. Therefore, you can't hire as many doctors and things like that. So focus on, what is my niche? What do I want to be? What do I want to be known in the community for? What do I want to be known around the world for? And focus on trying to build that as efficiently as possible and really show your expertise in that area. So educate consistently in that area and show that you have an expertise that a lot of other people don't have. When you go to get financing, your bank is going to want to see that you have a business plan. And you have it in place, you've researched, you've done your market analysis. And the nice thing about chiropractic school actually was that they made us do a business plan, which was really, really helpful. When I brought mine to the bank, it said it was the best one they had ever seen, and that's why they gave me a loan. Even though I had no business, skills in this area, I had never seen, done any of this type of aspect before. But they were willing to give me a loan to help me to develop a practice it was an SBA loan. So make sure you have a good business plan, and you may have to go to multiple different banks to get a loan, which is normal. I was really lucky. The first one I went to, they gave me a loan, and I've been with them ever since. So but some of the other students that were in my class, they had to go to many, many different banks before they would get a loan. So always make sure you have a really good business plan, really laid out, and exactly how you're going to get patients, exactly where you want to be, why you want to be there, the clients you're going to serve, all of those things all laid out in great detail, because that's really what a bank's looking for, is that you have a good plan. This is when I'm opening. This is when my marketing started. I want to put this much towards my marketing. I want to put this much towards my build out, those types of things. And then when it comes to finding the space, doing the build out, you have some different options. And these things I didn't know starting out. I signed a 5-year lease thinking, I got to sign a 5-year lease. That's what they wanted because they're doing my build out for me, those types of things. But what I would highly recommend is that you find somewhere where you can do a 1 to 3 year lease. This was the biggest mistake that I did, especially if you're niched into an area and you have a good social media following. This was my biggest mistake that I've made, is making my lease way too long. And it might be a 1-year lease with an extension, but you may have to put some money into the build out. Or it might be a 1-year lease and maybe the space was already built out and it will work for what you need. I would highly recommend doing that versus doing a brand new build out and then being stuck in it for 5 years. Because I was in an 1,800 square foot office and I grew out of it in the first 2 years I was practicing. Then I expanded in the same space and I grew out of that 6 months later. And then I expanded in the space again. I grew out of that, another 6 months later. So we had a lot of growth in a very short period of time, but that was one of the biggest mistakes, is me not being able to say, hey, I'll pay you $50,000 if I can get out of this lease. So make sure you have those clauses into there to where you can say, if I need to leave in a year, this is what I will pay you so I can get out of this lease. So that way you can continue to grow your business at a faster rate. And then the other big things I would say is don't do your own accounting. Have a good accountant with a good bookkeeper. An accountant will save you so much money because you can write so many different things off if you know the rules, which, if they know the rules. Make sure you have a lawyer make your LLC. Don't just make it on like LegalZoom or, those types of things. They don't turn out very good. They're not done correctly. Pay the $500 and have a lawyer actually make your LLC for you. I can't tell you how many people I know that started a business and didn't have a lawyer actually make it. And it ends up coming back to bite them almost every time. Have a lawyer actually do it and spend the $500 or $600 to do it. It'll save you tons of time later. Just do that and get a good accountant. Yes, they can be expensive. They don't have to be, but they can be. Really good ones are a little bit more expensive. But when I switched over to a really good accountant, it saved me so much in taxes, saved me way more than it cost me by far in taxes. So just FYI there. This video is sponsored by Unraveling the Brain, which is actually my course to train doctors to help these kids in the way that we do. So if you guys know anyone and know any doctors that are in your area that are maybe interested in working with kids, go ahead and send them a link to limitlessfoundation.co so that way I can help train them so you guys have a provider close to you guys. Let's jump to the show. And then other big things, once you start getting going, now you've built a social media, you're getting clients coming in, make sure you're going out and communicating with the other providers in your area. The other ones that are maybe in a similar field, but they do something different to you. Like, for example, for me, the people that work with kids, psychologists work with kids, OTs work with kids, PTs work with kids, they're primary providers, they're all of the dentists work with kids. Going out and meeting all of them and just explaining what you do and how that relates to them and how you can help them give better care with what you do. And not going there and meeting them with the purpose of give me business, is going there with figuring out, is that person a good referral source for your patients and understanding what they do so you know when to refer them. Once you start referring people consistently, number one, your patients think more highly of you because you're willing to say, hey, I think this person is going to be more beneficial than I can be in this certain area. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that you can't work with them in whatever area you're working on, but you're giving them a good resource for whatever difficulty they're having. And then number two, once you start sending patients to someone consistently and those patients talk highly of you, then they're going to start referring people back to you because that's when they start to trust you. So that's super important. So basically start building your webs, building your network of people that you can eventually start getting referrals from. And then your practice will start growing at a fast rate. And when you start out, my highest recommendation is don't start out with a massive amount of tools and expenses and things like that. Get what you need to serve your patients really, really well. But maybe you don't get a second set until you've filled up your schedule. You don't want just a piece of equipment sitting there that may have costed $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 that are just sitting there not being utilized. So make sure the tools that you get, that they're consistently utilized, they're consistently paying for themselves. And big thing would be is for a lot of your equipment, you can get equipment loans and you can pay, you can buy $50,000 worth of equipment and, through NCMEC or through wherever, and they'll finance it and you can pay, $700-800 a month versus having to take all 50,000 of that right away. So finance things, as long as you're busy and consistently busy and you're, consistently paying back your loans, finance as much as you can. So that way it's not big chunks coming out of your pocket. You can put more away in the bank to, for a rainy day. Because as you start, you're going to have really consistent, quick, growth periods. And then you're going to have periods where you stall out, and you're going to have periods where, you see patients more during certain times of year and things like that. And until you figure out that flow of patients and when your busy times are, when your slower times are of the year, it makes it really nice to have a cushion in the bank. And if you had to put $50,000 into buying a piece of equipment that you could have financed for $700 or $800 a month, it's a lot easier to finance it from a cash flow perspective, because you always want to have a decent amount of cash flow, because that's what's going to get you through some of those slower periods of time. And then last point that I'm going to make, this is kind of like the things to do prior to opening up, and I'm sure there's more that I'm forgetting, but obviously make sure you have insurance, malpractice insurance for all your equipment, all those types of things. Just get a good insurance agent and a good malpractice insurance. Make sure you're covered. Always have insurance. You probably will never need it, If you do, you just saved yourself a ton of money. And then last thing I will say, one thing I wish I would have done from the very beginning that I didn't do, which made things so much harder, was I didn't make standard operating procedures. I wish I would have done that from the very beginning. Everything from how we check someone in, how we check someone out, how we schedule someone, how we ask for payment, how we all of those basic things, how we take care of a patient. A patient comes in with XYZ condition. Here's the program and protocol that we have developed over time. And those protocols can change over time. Those procedures can change over time. But if you have it written out right away, it's so much easier to train your next staff, and then train your next staff, and train your next staff. And it takes so much stress off you, time off you, if you have all of that pre-made or pre-recorded, or like a course, quote unquote, that they can take that teaches them how to do all these things. It saves you hundreds of hours. And if you just do it right away from the beginning, it's super helpful, and it can change over time. So these are the things that I would focus on when you're first starting out, and especially in the first months of practice, because you typically have more time in the first months because it's slower. You don't have as many patients, so you can focus on building that business and building that foundation of the business and the structure of the business. It's going to allow you to build on it long term. And that was one of the biggest mistakes that I made, was not having that done at the beginning and building off of it, where things kind of built on their own, and people didn't quite know what was going on exactly, and it didn't get put into a standard operating procedure like it should have. So I hope these quick tips help you guys. If you have any other questions, let us know. I have a course called Unraveling the Brain that teaches doctors how to help kids with this in this area, not only in like the assessment and the rehab procedures, but also in the business related aspects that can be very challenging. So if you have any questions on that, that's found at limitlessfoundation.co. And I'll keep adding business tips and helping you build a business from, I want to talk about starting out here, what we do or what you can do to start building a business. But then I'll go from, starting a practice that, going from 0 to 100,000, 100,000 to 300,000, 300,000 and on and on and on up to multi-million-dollar practice, and how you get there and the steps you have to take in between. So I'm really excited to teach you guys that stuff and all the things that I've learned along the way. So have an awesome day.